Hey guys, it's time for yet another installment in my Kellerman vlogs. Hopefully you know by now what these are. If not, I reread a series of murder mysteries written by author Jonathan Kellerman. This is my decompressing, de-stressing thing that I do, and I reread the series from start to finish, and then I go back again at the top, and just in cycle. And like a lot of people that rewatch TV shows and movies and reread books and re-listen to the same music, I feel very strongly about it. I get invested in the characters, I get invested in the plots and the scenery and the settings, and I have thoughts, some things I like, some things I don't like, some things I have questions about, and so on, and I want to discuss these books with you if you feel similarly. So next up is A Cold Heart, which is one of my all-time favorites. Definitely top 5 favorites. I know I've talked in the past about trying to figure out which books are top 5 and which books are top 10. This is definitely top 5 without question of my favorite Kellerman books. Again, if you're watching this, I hope you've read it, but if you haven't, I'll give you a brief synopsis. Warning, there may be spoilers ahead. So, it starts out with Detective Petra Conner investigating the murder of a famous but no longer successful blues musician named Baby Boy Lee, who seems to be vaguely Stevie Ray Vaughan-ish. And she doesn't get anywhere on his murder. And then Milo is investigating a murdered painter, her husband's a sculptor, named Juliet Kipper. And they have no way of knowing, that the two are connected, but Alex sees similarities. He's like, wait a second, these are both artists who have had success, fallen from success, and then are on their way back up again. There's a connection here. And then, so Alex, I should probably go back and say Alex is the psychologist, Milo's the detective. Alex works as a consultant to the LAPD in addition to being a child psychologist. Okay. So Alex goes and does some independent research and finds that there have been several other artists, musicians, painters, etc., who have been murdered as their career has been ascending. And he's like, someone's got it in for creatives when they're starting to become successful. And that's the synopsis. That's the basis of the book. And then it's solving the mystery and figuring out who is murdering these creative types. So, and for that matter, they discover multiple murders, so the question is which ones are connected and which ones are coincidence. Okay, so let's look at my notes. This is one of my absolute favorite Kellerman books. It has Alex, Milo, Petra, Robin, several victims you care about, a potential suspect you're invested in, just a lot to like. It also introduces Milo's new approach to detective work. Thanks in part to his agreement with Broussard in the last book, he can now investigate pretty much whatever cases he pleases. It also introduces his office and second office, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Lastly, as a musician, this book particularly hits home. Part of the premise is that A Cold Heart... Oh, yeah, we're getting into the notes here, by the way. So part of the premise is that A Cold Heart was covered by another band and became a top 40 hit. And that... When was the last time a blues song was a top 40 hit? I'm like, Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Did he have any top 40 hits? Johnny Lang, John Mayer. I mean, even when those guys, even though those are blues guys, their top 40 hits weren't a blues, like a 12-bar blues, the way A Cold Heart is. So that doesn't seem accurate to me. When they talk about Baby Boy's last gig, his manager said that the sound men and equipment rentals came out of Baby Boy's pay. That's not standard unless he was renting guitars and amps, or unless the club didn't provide sound. But based on the description of the club, it was a place that regularly had acts perform and had sound, which is standard for any club that has music on a regular basis. And the soundman wasn't with the band. Normally, the only time that the band or the artist is responsible for the sound man is if they bring their own, but otherwise the club will provide one. So that doesn't really seem like the way business is normally done. Kellerman describes Petra examining another woman's look, and he uses the phrase, the way women do with other women. And it's supposed to be from a woman's perspective, but it definitely sounds like it's from a man's perspective. Like, it's clear that Kellerman is not he's not comfortable writing from a woman's perspective at this point. Which I guess turns out to be a good thing, because in later books, clearly he becomes more comfortable. But I guess that also seems fairly normal, that a male author would struggle writing from a woman's perspective, and it definitely, that one phrase was just bad, just really, really cringy. So I put this in all caps in my notes. I don't know how to say it in all caps, but this is the first appearance of Cafe Mogul. And I'm probably Mogul, I don't even remember how it's spelled. In my notes, I just put Mogul. If it's wrong, correct me. But that's the second office, where now that Milo is a lieutenant and he can pick and choose whatever cases he wants, he sets up shop at an Indian restaurant down the street from the police station. It's called Cafe Mogul, and then a lot of future books are set in large part there, and so from this point on, reading Kellerman makes me want Indian food, and I have spent so much money on Indian food as a result of reading Kellerman books. So this could have been some sort of conspiracy between the independent Indian restaurant organizations and Kellerman. But I definitely want some butter chicken and some chicken tikka masala and some naan and, some samosas and all of that as a result of reading these books. So, okay. They keep mentioning you-know-who. And it's in Brentwood, so I'm guessing OJ. But OJ would have been 10 years before this book was published, so it never really made sense to me. Is it supposed to be OJ? This book starts a trope here that is fine in this book, but in future books it really just gets bad. And that is where Milo fixates on someone as a suspect and Alex has his doubts. And you could argue that started back with Jamie Cadmus in what is the name of that book? I keep wanting to call it The Glass Canyon. That's not the name of the book. Over the Edge, maybe? But Alex wasn't entirely clear whether or not Jamie was innocent in that book. And in a lot of books, Alex is like, I don't think they're guilty. And Milo's like, they're guilty. Alex, you are wrong. And, of course, Alex always turns out to be right. The one that the worst example of this is Cherie Sykes. Like, come on. You guys have been partners for, long enough to know that Alex isn't that wrong. But in this book, it's understandable. Like, they all kind of zero in on the same suspect, and Alex is like, I don't know, his age kind of bugs me. I feel like he's not in the right age bracket, but he never really goes into any more detail than that, and the way that it plays out makes sense here. It's just that this trope continues in future books and gets worse, but here it's fine. Henna again. I'm not going to go into my soapbox, but if you've watched these videos, you know why I get red in the face every time henna is mentioned in these books. It is borderline racist. Okay. A guitar string is one of the murder weapons. And I talked about this in a previous vlog. Bad Love, the guitar string is one of the murder weapons. But every time a guitar string is a murder weapon, and it's happened in more books than just those two, I think, Alex and Milo are like, oh my god, a guitar string, I never thought of that. You're like, oh my god, that solves this mystery we've been wondering about for all this time. But it happened 2 books ago. Like, you should know, check for guitar strings. We're expected to wipe that from our memory every book, I guess. So, one of the characters in the book pays $500 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment in L.A., and that, it's not like a hole. It's not a ritzy apartment, but it's like, I could barely get a 1-bedroom apartment in Wisconsin for $500 a month back when this book was published. So in L.A., really? Really? There's a phrase where Alex's inner monologue says the act had been Robin. And that whole thing just always seemed way too cute to me. Alex and Robin are separated, and then the killer goes after Robin. There's a spoiler, by the way. Should have said spoiler alert again. What does Kellerman mean by 7 sets of low-E guitar strings? He says in the murderer's house, they found 7 sets of low-E guitar strings. Guitar strings come in sets of 6, with only 1 low-E per set. You can buy individual strings, and you could buy 7 low E's, but then they wouldn't be sets. Did he just mean 7 low E's and sets as a typo? Did he mean 7 sets of 6 that are missing the low E? Kellerman, I thought, plays guitar, because I'm pretty sure... I know Alex plays guitar, and Alex is pretty much based on Kellerman, so I'm pretty sure Kellerman plays guitar. He would know this. This seems like a pretty overt error. Okay, so I've been talking about the golden era of Kellerman. And depending on how you classify it, either this book is the last in the golden era of Kellerman, or the next book, which is a non-series book. It just depends as to whether or not you count the non-series books. Because then the book after that is Therapy, which starts a new era. And so the question is the non-series book part of the era, or is it like a separator? So that's what's next. The non-series book is next, The Conspiracy Club, which I really like, and we'll talk about that in the next video. And then after that, we start a whole new season of Kellerman books with Therapy. And I need to figure out a name for that, because we're at the end of the golden era, and we need to come up with the postmodern, post 9/11. I don't know. We'll come up with something for it. So I hope you've been enjoying these vlogs. I certainly have, and I hope that some of you guys will communicate with me, and we'll get to discuss these books further. I'm really looking forward to it. So thanks for watching.